Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're talking about Bitcoin, the hidden battle. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. Now, Bitcoin has been on one hell of a move off of the 50-week moving average, okay? And we were hoping to see it bounce off the 50-week. We've seen the 50-week come through in the clutch in the past. And now we have seen that bounce, right? We've seen that bounce. Now, we know Bitcoin will trend up with time. We don't need to look at, we don't need to exhaustively look at a Bitcoin chart to try to figure out if it's going to trend up with time. We know that it generally will trend up with time. But that's not the point. The point is that there's an ongoing battle right now, not on Bitcoin's chart, but on a different chart. Bitcoin's chart right now looks fine. We're above the 20-week. We are above all consequential moving averages that we discuss. If you look at the daily time frame, we are above the 20-day, the 50-day, the 100-day, and the 200-day. We even sort of bounced off here the 20-day and got a nice bounce. We've said before, when we bounce off the 20-day, we can often get a 15 to 20% bounce. A 15% bounce would actually take us over 50K. It would take us over 50K, and if it goes up to 20% off of there, it could take us up to potentially about 52.5, 52.6 or so. So that would be in the sense of getting those types of bounces. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about with those bounces off the 20-week, if we just go back a little bit and look at some of those bounces, like here was a bounce off the 20-week from the bottom that took us about 22%. And if you go back, there's been plenty of times in the past where Bitcoin gets those nice bounces off the 20-day. Sorry if I said 20-week, off the 20-day moving average. Okay, so we've seen that play out many, many times. We just got to bounce off the 20-day again. And so far, we are up about 10, 11% or so. But, we could still have a ways to go there before maybe settling it down again. So where is the battle? Because if the battle is not on this chart, then where is it? And obviously, we will have battles on this chart. We probably will test the 20-week at some point, but we're not testing it at the moment, right? We're not testing it at the moment. We are, in fact, continuing to move up. In fact, this is our 5th green week in a row, unless we come back down, unless we close the week below 47K. We're looking at 5 green weekly candles in a row. So then where is the battle? Where is it? The battle is on the chart for the dollar. And the only reason I say that is because historically, when the dollar is moving up, it means that people are leaving, things like the stock market in favor for the relative safety of the US dollar. Now, as crypto investors, we might scoff at the idea that the dollar is relatively safe, considering it doesn't really do anything but lose value every single year, right? So you might say, well, the relative safety of the US dollar. But it is true that if the dollar is moving down, Bitcoin does quite well, okay? I mean, it does exceptionally well when the dollar is moving down. Just look at this. From March, the end of March, up until January, the second week of January, what was Bitcoin doing during that time? The end of March, right here, till early January, this was that Bitcoin move. And then we got that rounded top. Right, and I would consider this to be a local top. I don't consider this to be a market cycle top. I do think that Bitcoin will go on to put in higher prices for this market cycle. But when we look at the chart, when we look at this chart for the dollar, we also notice that the time that the Bitcoin price really started to get rounded up here and was unable to continue this sort of move that it was on, where it was more or less just moving up crazy every single day, it more or less corresponds to the same time that the dollar started putting up a fight, okay? It started putting up a fight here in February. And that's also when Bitcoin really started to round out up here, okay? So go look at the dollar chart and you'll see that it really started to, to put up a fight and start moving up higher after this pretty quick move to the downside. Started making that move up in February, early March. That was when the chart for Bitcoin really started to get rounded out up here. And then now we look at it and we say, okay, well, it came back down. Okay, so it came back down and then it moved back up again. And now it's put in a new local high. It's actually gone higher than it was in March. Okay, so the price, the dollar, the strength of the dollar is actually higher right now than where it was back in late March. So the reason we need to keep an eye on this is not to say that the dollar has to keep Bitcoin from immediately putting in new all-time highs, because it doesn't have to do anything. Again, I do think Bitcoin will trend up with time. I think we have a long way to go. But the point is to say, well, when the dollar is going down, Bitcoin is typically going on a crazy rally. And we experienced that from March of 2020 until earlier this year. When the dollar is moving up like this, like in 2018 and in 2014, that's when Bitcoin isn't doing so well, okay? But when it's moving down like here, like in late 2016 and early 2017, we know Bitcoin is just going absolutely crazy. So the battle for Bitcoin, in my opinion, actually is on this chart, because what we would like to see for Bitcoin, in my opinion, to really have that strong confidence to move to 100K, what we'd like to see is we'd like to see the dollar actually come back down, okay, and maybe even go below this level here. We'd like to see the dollar come back down, take out these lows, and then just continue going. And it would seem like the dollar doing something like that would provide Bitcoin with a ton of strength. On the contrary, if the dollar continues to move up, it'll be interesting to see how Bitcoin reacts, considering that in prior moves, when the dollar's moving up, Bitcoin doesn't tend to like that. And we really can trace this back to the stock market. When people are getting somewhat spooked by the stock market, they may leave the stock market in favor of the US dollar for a time being. And if they're doing that, then that can sometimes lead to sell-offs in the stock market. You know, we haven't seen a consequential sell-off in the stock market of more than just a very minor dip in quite a long time at this point. So a lot of people are speculating that we're going to get a sell-off soon. The problem with that is that if you are always a stock market bear, you're more likely going to be wrong than right. Eventually you'll be right. I don't know when you'll be right, but it has been a while since we've seen the stock market pull back. And in fact, over the last few days, we have actually gotten a pullback, but so far it's nothing more than just the same minor dips that we've been getting, and sort of one of those buy the dip things, not an actual substantial pullback of like 10 to 15% or anything like that. So, I look at this and I say, well, we need to keep an eye on this. So what you should do, in my opinion, is if you're on TradingView, go to the dollar chart, go to DXY, see where it is, add it to your watch list, and keep an eye on it. Because if we keep watching the dollar go up, it's somewhat curious as to what will Bitcoin do. Will Bitcoin still have the strength to immediately go up? Now, I will say this. If the dollar does go up here, and it does temporarily affect Bitcoin, I don't think the dollar is going to rally for the next 2 years. Okay, I don't. I think that it could rally for a little bit and then come back down. Because remember, when you zoom out on this chart, what does it show you? It shows that over the macro scale, the dollar is generally losing value over the macro scale, right? And we are sort of just in this little window right here. So at some point, I imagine that the dollar will probably break this area and come down into this window over here at some point in the next couple of decades. And I feel like that would be a very strong time for Bitcoin whenever the dollar does that. So what I would say is, if the dollar does move up here, I don't think the dollar would move up for the next 1 to 2 years, but I could see it moving up for a few months. And it'll be interesting to see how the price of Bitcoin reacts to that, okay? Because we've never really seen the dollar sustainably move up and also see Bitcoin move up at the same time. I think this will be the first time that would happen. On any given day, you can see them both move up or both move down, but normally you sort of see them inversely correlated. Another interesting thing to look at for the dollar is to maybe put on the bull market support band and then the 50-week moving average. These are normally what I use when I look at this chart, and I just say, well, when the dollar is above the 50-week, it tends to be somewhat strong. Right now, we actually got rejected by the 50-week over here in March, but now we're back above it. We came back down to the 20-week. We held it as support, and now the dollar is moving back up. So that's the only thing I think right now that's sort of standing in Bitcoin's way. I think Bitcoin looks really healthy, from a lot of other metrics, from the sense of we went well below the 20-week moving average. We spent 3 months playing in the sandbox down here. Remember, when the market's bearish, that's the time to buy. We spent 3 months playing in the sandbox. We put in a lot of lows. We went all the way down below 29K, and now we've had a pretty nice rally off the 50-week. So in that sense, things look relatively healthy for Bitcoin. I think at this point, the only thing standing in Bitcoin's way is a potential hold of the 20-week moving average, which is probably going to be somewhat dictated by what the dollar does. So keep an eye on the dollar. If you want to see Bitcoin come up, continue to move up and put in new all-time highs, you probably would like to see the dollar come back down and not continue this rally. If you guys like the content, remember we do have the premium list sale going on. We're going to keep it going for 6 more days. So if you guys want to check that out and lock in the low rate, make sure you do that. You can find a link to that in the description below. We have weekly reports and videos, the Telegram alerts channel, Telegram chat room, the risk dashboard, and more, how I am navigating these markets. So make sure you guys check that out. Subscribe to the channel. Click the bell icon to turn on your notifications. Give the video a thumbs up. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Bye.